digital doubles, get your face scanned, and then they own your likeness forever. They could put your head on a rhinoceros, you can do all sorts of things and not pay you.
Scan them all once and fix it all in post. It was an important way you learned how a movie was made, and to learn the rules of set and how it all kind of worked as a production.
Hey everybody, Dragon Movie Guy here. Welcome to another podcast for the Dragon Movie Guy podcast. Today we are talking about the SAG-AFTRA strike. The actors' strike is going on concurrently at the same time as the writer's strike, as the WGA Guild. Joining me today to talk about the SAG-AFTRA strike is a friend of the channel. He is a film critic. He does a live video podcast with his co-host Jim Chilboyko Sunday, Monday night, like clockwork. This is a man who has taught me a ton about live streaming and OBS and has had me on his podcast a great many times. So please welcome back to the channel, Rob KRISTJANSSON. Rob, thank you for coming back to the channel.
And I think you deserve a round of applause. Your show, your live streams, your live conversations just keep getting better and better.
Thank you.
That's for you, baby.
Thank you, sir. And
all right, enough of that. Whoa, fancy.
Yeah, we've got the side-by-side close-ups. This is the second time ever using this one. This one I think is a little bit more personal. Yeah, then we got our side-by-side there.
I believe they call it intimate.
Yes. And then we have, of course, our chat window. So anyone who would like to participate in the chat, please let us know. Participate. It's going to be up on the screen there. And then, of course, our presentation screen. So we got all the bells and whistles, except not the actual bells.
All the gizmos, man.
All the gizmos, but not actual bells and whistles. Yeah, that's you know, to be determined still.
It's coming.
Still working on it a little bit. The SAG-AFTRA actors strike going on concurrently with the WGA writers strike. Most of the issues are similar, but there are some differences, and we're going to try and talk about a few of those differences here today. You and me talking about movies. Apparently that is still allowed under the terms of the writer's strike. Not that I would let it stop me per se. Anyway, according to an article on Variety, SAG-AFTRA is going to let us. They're going to give us permission to still review movies and still talk about movies. And for the most part, you can be a news anchor reporting on it, but if you're a news anchor, like if you're the reporter in the movie kind of thing, like, this is breaking news, everything's exploding around me, that you wouldn't be allowed to do right now.
Exactly. So there's some clarification and guidance to their membership.
And for most of the actors, the interesting thing is that most of the actors, though, are not supposed to be doing any promotion on social media. So not even promotion on their Facebook pages, on their Instagram pages, on their YouTube channels. If they're behind the scenes interviews, hey, ready to look at our filming of Barbie, and go on Margot Robbie's Facebook or Instagram. Theoretically, right now, she shouldn't be posting.
It's going to be her talking about the craft of acting.
Yes.
But not her good deeds, but not
her at the Malibu beach house. Unless it's her actual Malibu beach house, not the Barbie Malibu beach house, though.
Yeah.
So, from the actual SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, I think I got that acronym right. They have rejected all of the offers so far. The actual offer that the union is saying has been offered is a little bit different than what management has been talking about. They have different talking points, different... it's a little bit like politics.
'Twas ever thus in labor negotiations.
And, of course, management has released fewer details. We're starting with the actors because what they've released is a little bit more detailed.
They're very clear on their concerns.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the actors have laid out, the actors' side, the actors' union, SAG-AFTRA, has laid out a bunch of the issues as they see it, and they've also laid out what they say management's stance is. Now, obviously, we can't, unless management is saying it themselves, we can't really say that this is what management has said. This is what labor is saying management has said. But at least it's sort of a window into what the public side of the negotiations is. There is a PDF, and we have links in the description for all of this. The actors one is a 12-page PDF, and these are screenshots of that, so I can't scroll through these. SAG-AFTRA is claiming they say that they want an 11% general wage increase in year one, and they're saying that management is saying the most they could get is 5%. And 4 and 3.5% for years 2 and 3. Honestly, though, that doesn't even keep up with inflation. Inflation the last couple of years has been a little bit out of control.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Most wage demands in economic crisis points like this, all workers usually want is, can I get back to even close to what I've just lost? Purchasing power.
And a lot of times in collective bargaining, cost of living, or a COLA, is a separate thing entirely. Like, you see that with teachers' unions a lot. You see it a lot with different kinds of organized labor. As far as I can tell, this is not dealing with cost of living. This is just wage increases.
99% sure ACTRA, which is the actors' union here in Canada, doesn't have a COLA. Management was able to roll those back. You just don't see them. You rarely run into them. And yeah, like you said, they're usually they can be legislated back to work.
Like if nurses are on strike or 911 operators are on strike, that sort of thing.
You know, so-called essential workers.
And actors and actresses, like we love their craft. That's why we follow, we do movie YouTube channels, but they're not essential all the time because, thankfully, hopefully no one's going to die if someone doesn't do...
Essential to the soul.
Yeah, essential to the soul.
The death of the soul.
Also interesting here, and both sides are talking about digital extras and AI, artificial intelligence. In this case, though, the actors union right up top is talking about digital doubles and having the need for protection of incomes and performances. The idea of not just being paid for half a day's labor where you go in and get your face scanned and then they own your likeness forever and they can do whatever they want with it. They could put your head on a rhinoceros, they could put your body on a mannequin, they can do all sorts of things and not pay you. What are your thoughts on digital doubles?
Now, as a voice performer, non-union, I totally get why these guys are fighting that. This is part of the existential threat that management, why hire any extra? We'll just scan them all once and do it all, fix it all in post. But I think much like the writers in the mini rooms and all the other AI threat there, for actors, even myself, getting on set as an extra was an important way you learned how a movie was made and to learn the rules of set and how it all kind of worked as a production. We all got to start somewhere in the factory, and usually it involves sweeping. It involves sweeping. It involves work that nobody else wants to do. They've paid their dues. They've gotten their education. And so for actors, extra work is really important because otherwise, how do you get that experience to move to the next level? You know what? You're now just a working class slob as a professional extra. That's what you do. You're an extra. Basically, they want to automate you out of existence and deny a path. It's not the only way you can get in, but it denies one path of becoming a professional actor. Some guy reached out and said, so anyway, I'm going to clone your voice. How much will you charge me to read all these words?
Wow.
Like, not even a kiss before the...
Getting right down to it. Kind of on the other extreme end, it is interesting, too, because there's been some reports of James Earl Jones selling the rights to his voice so that Disney can do Darth Vader even after James Earl Jones dies. Which, it's a weird thought, but, I mean, James Earl Jones is a man who's now in his 80s, and he has such an iconic voice, whether it's "This is CNN" or Darth Vader. And Darth Vader, the character, can live on in video games and movies and streaming shows ad infinitum. So it's interesting seeing an actor in his 80s think about that vocal legacy and how important his voice is.
And how he can monetize it.
How he can monetize it even after he's dead.
Like so many other performers who have zero leverage and are not ever going to get a big check. It's going to be horse like Buddy got with a, I'm going to do this. What do you charge me so I can just have you on demand and never pay you ever again? So James Earl Jones can do that. As iconic a voice as it is and as iconic a delivery as it is, you can get a voice match for that. That happens on Fiverr all the time. This idea of selling that, maybe leave some for those folks who could, maybe that's the way they get in, that they can voice match James. I do a great James Earl Jones. I do not do a great James Earl Jones. I'm not going, what about my opportunity? At what point do we just say, you know what? That was then. We're going to have our own nice, shiny new now. There'll be a file that will be unable to tell the tale. It is not just his timbre and everything. It's about the ability to tell a story. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if they just hire a performer who will give that inflection and then they apply the James Earl Jones plugin on top of it. You know, the actual talent then all of a sudden is the person who will never get the credit, never get the opportunity to grow, to develop, to become their own star because they're too busy doing the hard performative work, the storytelling work, the thing the gizmo can't copy. And meanwhile, the estate of James Earl Jones and Disney Corp forever will just keep the money. There's my feelings on that. Sorry, you were saying to my point.
The voice of Mickey Mouse originally was Walt Disney himself, and obviously that's changed over the years, and we've had new Mickey voices come along.
Yeah.
Theoretically do that with actresses and actors who have gained or lost weight or who have aged on camera. What's to stop them from doing a digital Sean Connery and just putting that digital Sean Connery over Daniel Craig and having Sean Connery's voice going, yes, darling.
Justine Bateman. I'm a big fan of hers. She is definitely of the, here is the real threat of AI. I would call it the technological extreme end. Wouldn't put it past a studio to go, you know, who wants to see Luke Skywalker, but with a young Robert Pattinson? Because we want to appeal to the kids today. Or, you know, your favorite BTS performer, your favorite BTS member, or putting overlays on the movie that was made in the 70s. Guardians of the Galaxy is definitely in my top 10 so far of this year. I don't know about you, man. I still remember getting out of the theater in the 90s on a matinee at a second run, went and saw The Matrix, getting out of the theater going, what the was that? Like, wow. And that was a big studio picture. Was it the thing they spent the most money on? God, no. But it was still, that was a studio product. And you come out of The Matrix and you're going, holy. So it's not just the indie. It's not just the weird or the Wes Anderson every couple of years, but that, wow, all of this AI is going to make it harder to have those wow moments. And then, yeah, as a worker, it's like, yeah, probably extras are done. To quote something I learned when I was in the industry in the late 90s, Phil, you know, I think extras are done. AI is just you call it AI, but it's just more automation of a low skill. It's an easy thing to automate.
The classic example is sports movies. So anytime you have an arena or a stadium, even a big budget blockbuster, 80,000 people in a football stadium. But even if you look at Rocky from 1976, some of the background people in the upper ends of the stadium for Rocky even are just mannequins. They just wanted like a head and torso with a T-shirt on.
Lots of extras in all the Lord of the Rings movies. That said, a lot of digital fill.
Yep.
You know,
and you can tell.
Yeah, I think AI is taking over that stuff. The AI has not got that down, and I don't think it ever will. I think what it does take over is low-budget explainer videos. For the higher-end stuff, you still need a human being who can see the words and understand what they mean to know how to tell a story and to bring something to it. Like, I did some terrible voiceover stuff, movie explainers, but they were all terribly written. It was all copy pasta from Wikipedia and bad Google interpretations.
People thought the drum machines
yes,
would replace actual drummers, and to a certain extent, especially on certain types of music, that has come to pass. But I think
it's become the art of the producer now. Somebody's still got to set up those beats and everything.
Yeah, and that brings forth a whole new style, a whole new version of art, which is the producer, which is the DJ.
Yeah. You can use that as your cut point.
Yeah.
Rob and DMG go on an AI tangent.
Performers need qualified hair and makeup people. I thought this was sort of an interesting one because both the actors and management, the AMPTP, are talking to a certain extent, not just about actors, but about hair and makeup. SAG-AFTRA is pointing out that they want qualified hair and makeup people for not just the lead actors, but for background actors and also for people of color, because there are different styles of hair, there are different skin complexions, and to not have qualified makeup artists on set who have experience applying makeup to people of all kinds of backgrounds, that can be an issue.
Absolutely.
It's interesting that they both kind of talk about this to a certain extent. Obviously, the management side, the AMPTP side, is a lot vaguer.
We're totally with you, and we will endeavor to make that so within the constraints of operational requirements, etc.
And look,
in other words, no.
Well, and look, we get it. You know, everything has a budget. It's not monopoly money. It's interesting to see the union SAG-AFTRA trying to make the bigger tent, trying to include everyone to get people on their side in terms of negotiations. Would makeup artists be even covered under SAG-AFTRA in this case?
LA refers to as the domestic market, Canada and the United States. IATSE, International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. Hair makeup is in that union.
So not SAG-AFTRA.
Not SAG-AFTRA. Going back to these extras, they may have to show up hours before they're needed, and then literally, be prepared to do your own makeup. So all of a sudden you got to pay for it because all that costs. So all of a sudden you're at the lowest earning level and you have to bring all your consumables. So I think some of it's probably got to do with that. Like if you're in a real indie, it's like, you hire actors who can do their own hair makeup because, you can't afford anything.
Let's be honest, too. I mean, we can sit here and say, well, yes, of course they should have hair and makeup for every single background actor. But
I don't think they're saying that.
Well,
but they want maybe like a minimum. If it's a real negotiation, they say, hey, at this budget level with these many bodies, there should be one hair and makeup person for every 10 or every 100, whatever that number is.
It's interesting that SAG-AFTRA would be including hair and makeup when they don't cover hair and makeup under their membership.
But it's their it affects their members.
Oh, yeah,
right?
of course.
Like
but it's a bit of a paper tiger.
It's not necessarily the top of mind, like if that doesn't make it, but it has a direct impact on the working conditions of their members.
It's one thing for us to say we support higher wages and all this stuff, but how much of this, especially the hair and makeup and especially the background performance, how much of this makes indie movies harder to produce?
Those are all non-union anyway. This is not no. This is like I don't think it's a paper tiger. I don't think it's a paper tiger at all. Yeah, will it make the movie more expensive? Yes. The argument from the WGA and SAG-AFTRA is that there is money there. These just don't want to spend it.
How many movies will not get made?
The same number will still get made because they've got a pipeline they need to fill. It would be just that the money that's being made, the billions upon billions, less of that will go to the producers, and more of that will come to labor. That is their argument. When they're talking about the real indies, even if it's got $1 million budget, all these unions negotiate these or have different template agreements based on budget. You know what? We got teacup rates. And we get that you will not have the same resources, but what they're concerned with is, like all these moves, is it's the big budget ones going, Netflix with just a tiny little streamer. Won't someone think of us as we bring in billions? But I think that's really the issue. Do I think that that's a hill they're going to die on? No, but if they can get it, great, because all of a sudden their working conditions, because that's more of an issue about working conditions. If the actors' working conditions get better, then they're representing their members better.
The mid-budget movie has really turned into streaming shows, limited series. Does that continue where we're getting fewer and fewer episode counts, which is sort of the problem with that?
Well, again, I give you the same answer I gave you before. The question is predicated upon the scarcity of funds, whereas I am I agree with the economic analysis both the writers and the actors, these unions have done, where they're like, listen, if you look at the whole pot of money, that's grown into a rather monstrous thing. And these guys just need to share more of it. And there's two ways that money can be shared: better working conditions and just plain more money. Mo money. Their share prices are solid. None of these places are going under. They're making money. There's always these smaller players. They do well and then they don't do well. But the whole pie is so much bigger than it was. The unions are arguing it's like, nah, you just need to share more with us. By not charging you what we would charge the broadcast network, we have subsidized the growth of streamers. Now we're like, it's time to collect. There is enough money. The producers just need to cut the check. The same number of movies will be made. That's my speculation based on the math I have seen. I cannot think of a business that was actually truly broken, an industry broken because labor was just wanted too much. I know it's a great talking point, but actual demonstrated, oh, that's what broke them, was the workers' greed? Or was it the employers? The consumers are making choices as well. They'll see a lot of television, but are they making those choices like they're rational economic players? No, they're like, is it good? They'll pay for it and they'll watch it. Everyone gets worried about, hey, can't cross the picket line, but no, keep buying their product, please. I'm like, why would I buy their product? They're not paying you. Like, they're literally now not paying you. Yeah. I feel bad giving that rich money when you're hungry. Well, maybe the business model is wrong. Maybe. We don't even know that.
Talking about actors and healthcare. One that I came across was Connor Leslie, who was Wonder Girl in the Titans TV show on HBO Max, or now just Max. And if you look at her credits list, she's been a working actress for 10, 15 years, but there's not a whole lot of credits on her IMDb page currently, 2020, 2022, and 2023. And she posted on her Instagram page, her getting a letter from the union, from SAG-AFTRA, pointing out that she's going to be losing her medical. And she will have to go on Cobra for medical care for her and her kids because she hasn't made, I think the post said something like $26,000 this year. So the fact that here she is, a working actress, hasn't been working as much lately, and here she is, middle of her career, successful career by all accounts, and she could be losing medical.
10 years ago, a woman with her credits, a lot of that would have been, look at Man in the High Castle, not television, streaming. You look at some of her credits, but she would have been a working, say, TV and movie actor. She wouldn't have been making 26 grand. Should have making maybe 36 and not getting bumped out, which is part of the core issue here, is that the way they've gamed this system, people used to have a good what most Americans would call middle-class income are now, they've been getting shoved down over the last 10, 20 years, just making a lot less. Healthcare geared to employment and how much you're getting employed. How many part-time workers have a full healthcare? Not many. And she's becoming a part-time worker, or she's worried that it's becoming a profession where the only people who can do it are people who can afford to do it. Independently wealthy, or they married well.
Which then limits the talent pool of the quality of the performances. For every Julia Louis-Dreyfus or Kate Mara, whose families are billionaires, they are great performers in their own right, but for the people that are coming up that are, say, Hilary Swank, who didn't come from money, who then had to prove themselves as actors and actresses, were then robbed of those performances.
You don't have the buffer. The Hilary Swanks are actually really rare. And Connor, well, she began when she was 15. God. A lot of people in LA, unless they're crew, come from some sort of means, because it costs so much to get the training and to put up with all the other crap before you get in. The rich people will own the operation, and then they'll provide all the good jobs will be taken by them.
And the one or two people that do make it through are the exceptions that prove the rule, not the exception to the rule.
But back to your comment about Connor Leslie. Well, yeah, that is one of the issues they're striking over. I think SAG should have had this fight 10 years ago when the WGA struck in the, 2007, 2008? But they're fighting it now. In the end, it still comes down to this was not happening in the 90s. It's happening now.
If you're talking about union votes like this, the vast majority of the members, at least according to these articles, are not the Tom Cruises. I mean, obviously Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, all the big Toms, all the big Chris's, all the big Toms, all make pretty good money and are all members of these unions. But most of these actors in these unions of SAG-AFTRA are the working Joe actors. It would be interesting to see when it comes down to a vote, will the average Joe six-pack actor, whose vote counts just as much as Tom Cruise's vote, will there be enough of those votes to approve whatever that final deal is?
That's like any labor negotiation, right? It's a bit of an existential crisis for both these unions, and so that's why they got such a high vote, which is why Iger and all the other rich eggs, we're going to wait until they're hungry, that they're literally hungry, that their asses are out of their homes.
After the writer's strike in 2007-8, they've stockpiled a ton of content to where they can have new content being released as this strike is going on.
But eventually that stockpile drops, just as worker savings disappear. Right?
But that's the argument, though, is that that makes management's side able to hold out longer than the worker's side, generally speaking.
It just depends. How big is that stockpile? Because they haven't been loading it up since 2008. Wow, that's a weird fashion on this actor who was kind of famous then, and I can't remember.
If we see the Batgirl movie coming out as the big summer blockbuster of 2024, we know we're in trouble.
Right.
One of the other big issues, obviously, there, too, is streamers having transparency on their streaming numbers.
Which I think you and I want as critics. I want to know, really, how successful is
like Netflix being a prime example of
the
top... Well, when they say, when you have Arbitron for radio, when you have Nielsen for television, when you have box office numbers independently counted and verified, and you don't have an equivalent of that for streaming, industry-wide metrics that can be measured, verified, and both sides can say people are watching, people are not watching, how long are they watching?
I roll my eyes. Wow, how well are they really doing? And it's like, you know what? I do think some are like, oh my God, that really people watching that? But for the most part, the fact that they, right from the get-go, have rejected any sharing of that data and to place a real residual program like they had in the rest of the industry, it says to me it's all Hollywood accounting. Every movie's lost money as we drive by their ridiculous houses, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to share that data. They don't want anyone to know just how popular X or Y is. And they don't want to share that information because it's going to cost them money.
We know that they have the viewership numbers. We're YouTubers, so we don't get all of the numbers from YouTube. But even just us, we're small
we get
YouTubers.
A lot of good data.
Yeah. And that's just us as small creators from YouTube. That's not even saying that's all of the numbers that YouTube gets. That's just the numbers that YouTube shares with us that we can actually see. So if we're as YouTubers getting the kinds of data that we get, clearly those numbers are available and should be available to people in the industry at least.
Because they all have some sort of a share in profitability that is always linked to the movie, not the industry as a whole, but the movie you worked on. That's your profit sharing. The residual system was basically the retirement program, right? And if you worked on a stinker that didn't go into, repeats or anything, well, then you didn't make the big bank because that's the risk everyone takes, right? And so that's those workers sharing some of that risk. Now, what they want is like, you know what, we're just going to pay you. And if it's a loser, well, we were going to pay you anyway. We have to legally pay you. If it's a winner, we get it all.
Risk sharing, but not really profit sharing to the same extent.
Exactly. We will share the risk with you, but not the reward.
Let's move on to the AMPTP response, and we're not going to spend as much time on this because SAG-AFTRA has a 12-page PDF. This is a 2-page PDF from management with very few details. These are bullet points. Page 1 is the highest percentage increase in minimums in 35 years, which I don't really see how that's much of a brag. Second bullet point is a 70% increase in high-budget streaming residuals. 70% increase over what and to whom.
From $1, it goes to $1.75.
And here's the vague, and it's management, so they're vague. Yeah. But the third bullet point is substantial increases in pension and health contribution caps. So it's substantial. We're not going to say how much, but substantial.
And not in contributions, just in caps.
Yeah, in caps. Let's be honest, too. Caps, as in teeth, veneers don't look as good as the real thing.
Good one. You know what? You deserve 2.
I'll be here all week, folks. As we move down the bullet points, thank you. Interesting, too, here, management is listing as the 4th bullet point. Groundbreaking AI proposal protects performers' digital likeness, including requirement for performers' consent for the creation and use of replicas, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't really matter the business. There's management and there's the workers. There's the union and there's ownership. And it's always funny to see both sides. And you see this more with management. People inventing things to give up that they really don't care about, just so that they can say that they gave up something in the negotiation. Well, we gave up X, Y, and Z when no one on either side really cared about that, but we invented something to give up to build up our case, to show that we gave up something. I wonder if management mentioning a groundbreaking AI proposal, AI, CGI, it's expensive. So I wonder if part of this is management bolstering up the argument for AI so that they can give it up when they weren't even really all that serious about, in the near future, the length of this contract, investing seriously into AI.
That you might be right.
Well, we gave up.
We took a pause.
We gave up self-driving cars. We gave up whatever. We gave up personal masseuses.
No actors are being replaced yet.
Yet.
We have not seen that. And, well, hear me. I don't think that's going to happen.
And when they are, it's expensive. It's not cheap. It looks cheap, but it's not actually cheap.
This groundbreaking AI proposal, which protects, including a requirement for consent.
Well, we know management doesn't care about consent.
Here's the thing about consent.
The Harvey Weinsteins of the world do not care about
worker consent. Worker consent. Oh, yeah, you're going to need Brad Pitt's consent, and that's going to be paid for if he even allows it. Everyone else, hey, that's just the way it works here. No one's saying you have to consent, but no one's saying we have to give you the gig. Like, it'll be informed, especially the part where, do you want the job? Then you must consent to this. But
right, like background checks or something.
Like yeah, exactly. It's the leverage is so high with the vast majority of actors. Let's go back to Connor Leslie. You know what? She's losing. So here is a woman who might be losing her health care. If she can't hustle something, can't make something work, what leverage will she really have? Even with some notoriety, she's represented, she's got an agent, got a bit of a reel. It's going to be hey, Connor, this could be a great gig. It's a main role. We think it's going to really have a nice run, but I know this could be a deal breaker for you. Digital consent. You got to consent to a digital likeness in perpetuity. And all of a sudden, Connor Leslie looking at her kids, doctor's bill, that's too much leverage. And that would be doesn't pass my sniff test.
We're squeezing you so hard that you have to consent. The more modern version, Apple's terms of service. When your iOS updates, well, you've got to check off the accept terms of service.
We've all been screwed on this stuff, like where we have to. What leverage do I have with Apple? What leverage do I have with any of these players who've all their terms of service are virtually identical for all intents and purposes? Need a smartphone. This is not a nice to have, part of modern living now. I have to agree to their egregious terms of service.
And even if the terms of service were good before and you went through and read every single line, when those terms of service update...
Do you want to keep using your phone?
Yeah.
The thing you're trying to use right now?
And then did they go full Darth Vader and change the terms of the service after you agreed to whatever it was before?
They're literally saying, we've updated it. Please review and accept or decline. I'm like, the reason I'm seeing it is because I need to use it.
In this analogy, we're all Lando Calrissian. We have all of the overhead of Cloud City, and Darth Vader has us by the balls, changing the terms of the service.
And what's the line again?
Do you feel you're being treated unfairly? Let's go through a few more of these just real quick. 58% increase in salaries for a major role, guest star, high budget SVOD programs.
The devil's in the detail, but I get that. These guest stars who are getting screwed. Like they keep coming back as guest stars. They're owned for a week. They get locked in. They're basically main roles, but not paid like a main role.
Regular guest stars, recurring guest stars.
Just like it'll be in the definitions.
Yeah.
And how do you define a high budget?
Limitation of self-tape requests, including page, time, and tech requirements, options for virtual and in-person auditions. This is interesting because it's not even talking about after the fact, after being cast, after acting in the role, this is just trying to get the job in the first place. For actors, they're always kind of in a state of auditioning, in a state of trying to find the next gig. Is this like a big thing that management is giving up?
The abuse has gone way up. If they're really talking about limitation, then great.
And what that limitation is and defined as.
Exactly. Daniel Petrie Jr., claim to fame, nominated for Best Screenplay for Beverly Hills Cop. He was also the first big LA director I ever worked for my brief time in the industry. Almost a writer's strike. Daniel at the time was the Writers Guild's past president. He could direct, but he couldn't write after a certain point, and there's still edits. This is all in pre-production. Managed to divert a script, but I remember something I was able to bounce off my dad, and he bought it. The difference in a union negotiation versus a star negotiation. You've agreed on the $1 million. Now you're just one nanny or two. But the deal's going to happen because no one's going to blow the deal over a nanny. Union negotiation. You've agreed on all the smalls. You've agreed on the nanny. It's the $1 million you're arguing about. And so the union negotiation could fall apart at any time because you've agreed on all the small. It's the big money that you're arguing. That's the real fight. even the hair makeup thing, because it just doesn't add that much to the cost. By that point in the budget, you're like, you've spent the $1 million. You've hired the star. You've agreed one hair makeup person or two. That breaks your budget. Then should the movie have been made at all? Or Keanu Reeves, he had his deal. Everybody agreed to it. And then they went back to him and said, can we renegotiate your deal? Otherwise, we don't have enough for special effects. And so I'm sure he was like, sure.
And then trying to do
he's not sharing his pay.
Yeah, then
he
trying
was
to
like
do guilt trips. Guilt trip the star.
I'm getting a rollback afterwards. Yeah. But I wonder if over a beer, if you really were in a safe space with them, you'd go, producers are forever out to Note the 17% increase for background actors required to do extensive self-styling, which is the actors' demand for hire a proper hair makeup person.
Yeah,
where actors were not stylists. That'll be a discussion, right?
A ton of shots in the trailer from They Cloned Tyrone of big crowds of extras in 70s hair and makeup. Different styles of makeup for different times, too.
That's effing money.
Interesting that that management is not leading with that, but they're throwing around relatively big numbers. 11% pay increase in year one.
Well, for
no mention about year 2 or 3, but
yeah, and it's for the background performers. You can make a living, but it's not a good living. It's only 11% in the first year.
It's probably nothing for years 2 and 3. It's probably a one-time pay increase of 11%.
Yeah,
as opposed
for background performers, not for all performers.
Yeah, but it's that 11% once. Not 5% a year, 11% once, which somehow I'm sure the math probably doesn't add up, of course. First time ever fixed residuals for stunt coordinators. That's another one that I wish that stunt performers, stuntmen, stunt women, stunt coordinators would get a bigger part of the budget, because that is a huge thing of John Wick movies, of any kind of action movie. Stunts are huge, high risk.
It's performance. Yeah. And it is part of the performance. And a stunt coordinator, one of the reasons why a lot of stunt coordinators are also, you'll see them listed as second unit directors, is because they have such an important impact on the effectiveness of a sequence. They don't say first ever fixed residual, and even that's fixed residuals. This is all back to their, we don't want to pay any formula. We just want to say, tell you what, we'll give you 5 points or whatever it is. I didn't know this until I was in the local business. One of the things they liked about being in Canada was a lot of the performers, they could hire Canadian performers, and the deal they had with ACTRA was what was called a buyout of your rights for a limited time. I remember my one time where I had lines, so I was considered a principal, my one paid experience as a performer. I didn't just get my day rate, but I got 100% buyout of that for the 5 years. A part of me suspects that because it's ACTRA, they don't necessarily have the resources that SAG does. And after 5 years, the pay drops off, or they're just like, they don't have the resources to really chase down the numbers. Any nickels that I might receive after that 5-year limitation, who knows how accurate that is, the accounting is.
In your case, and granted this is a while back, but in your case...
20
So in your experience, in this case, from 20 years ago, have you ever gone back and done the calculation for how much they paid you up front for that 5-year buyout, and how much you would have gotten had you not signed away those rights for that more money up front?
I wouldn't even know where to start with that. For me, as a one-off, give me my money now. Robbie wants his money. But it's a one-off, right? As a whole system, you got money purchase plans for your retirement, 401ks, or you have what used to be the norm, defined benefit. Always go defined benefit. And I would say, going back to SAG or the ACTRA model, this idea of, well, we'll just buy it out. It's like, well, but I'm never sharing the rewards. They're just piecing me off. They built it into the cost structure. And see you later. There you go. You know what? I don't know. Don't know. And that would be more of an ACTRA question of somebody who was involved in that negotiation, which probably happened in the 90s.
It's just one of those interesting things of taking a payout early versus long-term cost benefit. It's always interesting to look at those.
These guys aren't offering that. They're just saying, we want to pay you less.
Hair and makeup consultation for performers of all complexions and hair textures.
What does that mean?
Well, we know what it means.
It doesn't mean anything. It's not, we will hire professionals who know how to do this. It's, well, we'll help you. We'll consult with you.
Because it's management saying that they're not going to be racist without even admitting that racism is a thing.
It's not even that. It's no admission. It's, we'll consult.
We'll have a meeting.
Have a meeting. This isn't even squaring it. It's cubing it. Calls at all hours. That remains.
Yeah.
So that's where I put that one. Hair and makeup consultation for performers, not hair and makeup consultation with the producer to make sure that they hire the right hair and makeup professional. No. It's for you, the performer, because we care about you.
And what do you want to bet that their version of that is to have a YouTube video showing people how to do hair and makeup?
Then we can start cheaping out on how we
This is our version of helping you out by having a YouTube video.
And even as they're listening to, they're going, wow, I think that's an AI voice.
Yeah. And it comes full circle.
There's the circle.
The circle of life and the circle of negotiations.
It's an art form we love and love talking about, but it is produced by a business. So we have some skin in the game. What happens with this business affects the art that we get.
It is something that does affect us and how we choose, as consumers, how we choose to consume entertainment, how we choose to. Do we choose to go watch it in the theater? Do we choose to invest in streaming services? Do we choose to spend our time watching what is being produced? And if it goes too far afield in any one direction, I think that answer becomes no. I think we're seeing that with the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, where quality has gone down and not as many people are going to theaters. And not just for Marvel, but if you look at the last month, there haven't been any truly great movies so far this year, or very few. And even those that we'd like, they're likes and not loves in our reviews.
I think the strongest see it I gave out this year is solid see it. Not
well, and honestly too, if you look at Dan Murrell's box office videos each week,
Road to Recovery is not looking too good.
And if you look at June 16th onward, the numbers for box office, and this is post everyone being out of school for the summer, have dropped. They've dropped like a rock. So I think all of these discussions over actors' strikes, I think it does have an effect on quality, and business doesn't have to be negatively affecting art, but they do affect each other. They don't have to, but they do. Part of the reason why we're seeing box office numbers plummet so badly the last month, but it should be the peak of movie season. I think it's a little bit of all of that kind of.
Because remember, the box office is now an ever-shrinking part of the pie. And I want to wait for a couple more years to see how that trend line looks. But even up to 2019, the trend line is down. But as a percentage of population grew over the same period, 26%. That means less people are going to the movies at all. When we first met each other, we'd have some of these conversations talking about a couple of years ago and, hey, what's it going to be like in the new normal? Dan might be tracking what the new normal is. It's just that it's just less. It's not even the quality of film, because we've been complaining. People have loved to, one of the things they love to do is complain. They don't make them like they used to. Back in my day. I wonder if we're just seeing habits have changed enough now. One of the reasons these studios, because they have access to far better data than you and I have, they're like, no, the future's still streaming. We've had some hiccups and some bumps in that, but there'll be some movies that are seen in big screens. The rest of it's going to be in streaming. We can reset the labor-employer relationship in the new normal. If it goes to where it was in 2019, we should be happy. It's probably going to be a little less. And then this year to year, it's kind of tougher. There's been no wow movies because making a good movie is just hard. Making a good one is hard. And
that's what she said.
There you go. There's your rim shot, my friend. It's just hard to make a good movie at any budget level. It's hard to make good television. Maybe. But maybe we're in kind of an actual the end times of the theatrical release. You'll get the Heirs of the World, which is a pretty good flick. I think I said it was a solid see it, but that you didn't need to see it in the theater. I didn't. You know what? It got some prestige from being in the theater. I mean, this is just a good streaming movie. You know, that's all it is. The Spencer Confidentials. That's a streaming movie that would never look good in a big screen.
What used to be the straight to DVD is now the straight to streaming. I do think, though, that the straight to streaming standard is a little bit higher than the straight to DVD.
I think that the straight to streaming, like the old movie of the week, without restrictions of commercial breaks and broadcast standards, swearing, nudity, etc., you could make a really good movie of the week. That means you can make a really good streamer. Thinking of Game of Thrones. Oh, I know it's not a movie, it's a television show, but wow, that's some top tier streamer quality. Max, like at what point do you kind of go, what's the difference? I turn my TV on and I watch it.
And you're right. And what that difference is changes over time. Is it even really a difference anymore? We're talking on Restream. I have the free version of Restream. What 20 years ago would have been thousands and thousands of dollars of satellite time. You know, we're talking for free in high definition over our computers. And yeah, of course we bought our computers, but we bought our cameras. But other than those one-time expenses of consumer level goods, we've been doing an HD broadcast for free on YouTube. So, progress does happen and the line does change.
How does our conversation about films affect films? And I'm not talking that you and I affect films, but you and I as a group, I think, do have an impact. But that's, I think, for another show that we should do on my channel.
Yes, absolutely. TBD, and very, very soon we will come on your channel to talk.
I think that'd be a great conversation. How the YouTube space, how it's had an impact on film. So.
Tell me more about what's coming up on your channel, what we can look forward to seeing, and and your Fiverr services. Plug away.
Let me talk about what's coming up on the channel first. At Rob KRISTJANSSON. My health has been up and down. I have actually seen movies, shot reviews with my co-host for No Hard Feelings, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and the most recent Mission Impossible films. All stuff that I hope to push out the door. So that's what's going on there. I also have a project talking about how some of these franchises, whether it be the MCU or even Mission Impossible, how much of the air do they suck out of the room and deny us wow? And now it's like, well, you want me to come to the theater? I better be wowed. I want quality. And if I don't hear wow, if I'm not getting that vibe from the trailer where I'm like, this is going to be an experience, I keep my powder dry. I'm thinking of Ant-Man Quantumania. They got a great first weekend, but that movie did not deserve a second great weekend, and it didn't get it because there was a mediocrity, not a zero, but you know what? That was a disappointment. And I think since then, people are like, kind of show me. Podcast editing, sound design, audio production, like you got bad audio, maybe I can help you with that. You got good audio, you want it great, I can help you with that. And I also do voiceover, including some character stuff, mostly in the sci-fi sort of genre, but mostly corporate stuff. And, on occasion, the epic voice trailer.
Epic voice guy.
Epic voice guy,
This is a subject, too, that I know that I can just go twist, wind you up, and let you go. And all that sweet airtime, all those clicks. All I had to do was say, Rob, talk about unions.
I did not feel like you manipulated me, but I do appreciate that you're like, who do I know? Oh, I know will have an opinion. And will not be shy with it.
You're an actor, you're qualified, you're a union guy, you are the perfect person to talk on this very specific topical topic that you know, it's in our niche. It affects our what we care about. We care about movies. We care about entertainment. We care about television streaming. All of that. And you have strong thoughts on the subject, and that is exactly what I wanted to hear.
Part of what's floating around in your brain, in everyone's brain, is rich Hollywood celebrities, ostentatious, grossly ostentatious displays of wealth in a business that gives us such joy.
You did inadvertently go over my adult film name of ostentatious in the film Human Interest. My short-lived career in adult film. Kidding, people. I was never a porn star, or was I? Ostentatious. And if there isn't a porn name for Human Interest, there's got to be some movie, I would hope so.
You would think.
Yeah, with that, Rob Christensen, thank you for coming on. Movie news you could use are the Dragon Movie Guy podcast to talk the actors strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike. Thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome. I'll play myself out.
Yeah, done. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. See ya.
Bye, everybody.